Infertility comes with lots and lots of challenges for expecting couples, especially women. So we're going to be having two special guests join us on the show. Are two women who'll be sharing their own different experiences and also lay emphasis on how spouses, families, and society at large can help women during this trying period. We have with us women's support advocate, Katherine Abagun, and the author of Waiting Room, Bolatito, Adebayo. Let's start with the ladies while the connection is being put together. Yes, go ahead.
So I think that, sometimes when we hear infertility, the focus is usually on the woman. Everybody just puts their attention on the woman. And we know that a lot of times it's not the woman's fault. And the men somehow absorb themselves from, the responsibility, the consequences. They don't want to go to tests. They just, it's a woman's thing, don't drag me to the doctor. It takes grace for a man to now agree and follow a woman to the doctor to check if the fault is not his. And because of that, the society just, tries as much as possible to make the woman feel horrible, feel terrible, that this is your fault, you are barren, you are this and that. And they carry out all sorts of, for those people in traditional homes, all sorts of traditional things they mix and give to the woman to drink. You are not a woman if you do not have a child. And so it makes a lot of people depressed. I have seen people who had this issue of infertility for a very long time. Their lives were very depressing till we advised one. I and my husband actually spoke to one person. I said, you have money, adopt a child. Talk to your husband. Please, your husband is a pastor. He would understand. And they found a way to do that. And since she did that, any day she sees me and my husband, she will thank us and say, I have peace. So I am happy now.
So the issue I'd like us to focus on, because yes, infertility happens, but there are solutions people don't want to consider. There's surrogacy, adoption, IVF. These are options for women to take. But we want to discuss the stigma around it and see how we can demystify it so people can actually be able to take adequate decisions for their own joy and happiness. Because, go ahead, Mary.
When you asked infertility, I just immediately wanted to go from the BC's angle, which is men are not seen to have that problem. And there are many men who are going through that problem. And I feel that the problem is education. And as we said, also stigmatization. So it's easier for a woman to carry the burden because, of course, when you're in front in church and there's an altar call for people who are struggling with infertility, the wife will come out, or the woman will come out, and then she's there with her fellow women. So how many men do you see standing there, even in the gap? Sometimes it says, come and stand in the gap. It's a niece or a sister or an auntie that will stand, not a man. Because for a man, it's even, especially in our culture, it's just such a huge burden. It should not happen. But the thing is, we need to destigmatize it for men, educate men, also help them understand that there are options, help them understand that there are reasons why you could be this way. There are lifestyle things that men can also do in order to improve it. And then the medical options that are there, and then the adoption as well. And the adoption, the reason why it's such a big problem also, our culture, and the thing about it is not your blood. It's not your, to not come out from
I know
so
somebody who adopted many years ago, and today the daughter, she's about 10 years old. Wow. And she looks exactly like perfect replica. I'm telling you. Wow. I know a few also. So this somebody, we're all there when she was trying to put papers together for the adoption. In fact, she was like, Mariah, please come and help me check this. How do we do it? When the baby was a little baby, was about 4 weeks old. When we went together, I didn't go with her, but I took her to the airport, to go and, go and inspect and everything. And now the baby is 10, the girl is 10 years. If you see this girl, you wouldn't know exactly like the mother.
So the challenge is, I'm an only child, and everywhere, whenever we talk about this, I always say, I wish my parents adopted like 2 or 3. Let me have siblings. Let me have someone to quarrel with or something thereabouts. But it just, there's a spiritual angle to this. This waiting on God. This we don't want to help God. God is going to do it in His time. And people would see viable medical solutions like IVF, but they wouldn't take those options because they feel it is not godly, that the way God designed it to be is for conception to take place organically. And so they would not consider IVF. And then adoption is very far from their mind. They don't even think about adoption because for them it's like, we'll wait on God. Yeah. 20 years, 15 years in marriage, we're waiting on God. And they hear a testimony of somebody in his 60s or 60s and then had a child, and they're like, oh, God that did it for this person. But all those years of waiting and the stress and the emotional burden that you endured all through, you could have adopted along the way or tried other medical solutions.
So we're going to come back and see if our guests are back, because these two women have profound stories that you have to hear. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So we have two guests joining us for this conversation. Katherine Abagun, the author of The Waiting Room, and Bolatito Adebayo, who's going to talk about her experience with IVF. Let me start with Bolatito. Thanks for joining the show, Bolatito. Are you there?
I'm here.
Yes, yes. So we're in the first segment, we're talking about the fact that many families struggle with the decision to either look for options outside, options for infertility. So how did you and your spouse come about the agreement on IVF, and what exactly was the process like? Share your experience with us in a nutshell.
Okay. Bolatito, a point of correction, please. Bolatito Adebayo is the author of The Waiting Room. My husband and I waited for 7 years before we had our child. And after going for series of tests, going from hospitals to hospitals, religious house to the other, prayer centers to the other, my doctor now told us that it is better we try an IVF. That was actually after I had done fibroid operation, because initially fibroid was one of the reasons why I couldn't get pregnant. So after doing the fibroid operation, the child wasn't coming still, and age wasn't on my side. Time was clicking. So when the gynecologist, Dr. Adebayo, called us and advised us to do IVF, we decided to, my husband and I decided to pull the funds together and go for IVF. And we were lucky. Our first IVF came through for us, and we had a son.
Oh, congratulations.
Really?
Let me ask Bolatito, how was it for you what sort of responses did you get around family members, friends, church members, when you decided to go for the IVF? Was it something you made public? And how did the religion take it? Did they make it seem like you were taking the devil's solution rather than waiting for God? How was it for you, your experience, please?
Okay, let me start by this. In my church, there was a time a guest pastor was invited to the church, and the pastor said, while preaching, at that point, I was thinking of going for IVF. And the pastor came to the pulpit and I think it was a special program for women looking for the fruits of the womb. And we were told to sow a seed. And while he was saying this, he said that Sarah did not do IVF.
Wow.
Sarah did not do IVF. Anna did not do IVF.
Wow.
He mentioned all the women in the Bible who had infertility issues. And I was like, am I really in faith? Why would I go for science instead of sticking with my faith? I was pretty confused. But then I went ahead because my gynecologist kept telling us that IVF is not satanic. It is actually a miracle from God to us. So that was how we eventually made up our mind. The question about secrecy is, yeah, we have to keep it secret because you know how it is here in Nigeria.
Yeah,
many people don't want to talk about IVF. Many women go to church having children through IVF, and eventually they come and give testimonies, but they leave the IVF parts out of it.
Like, let me get a few more questions.
One more. Bolatito, please, you waited 7 years before you finally went ahead with IVF. There might be a young couple watching you now, and they're a year or two into their marriage. How long would you advise them to wait before they go and get like IVF?
Well, if you are, after you have married for a year, you are being certified as infertile when you don't have a child medically. So if you are married, I will advise, immediately you are married and a year you don't have a child, you should seek medical help. And my gynecologist also said it also depends on your age. If you are much older, if you have been having regular sexual intercourse for 6 months and you are not having children, you should go seek medical help. You can, first of all, start the normal medical procedure before your gynecologist can now tell you to try IVF.
Okay.
So I can't say specifically what time. It is left for the gynecologist to advise you what, depending on your issue, to tell you when to go for IVF.
Let me bring in Katherine here. Katherine, I know your story was a bit different. You had the option of adoption, which you took, and I'd like you to share your thoughts on that, or your story, your experience with us, before we then move on to other parts. Yeah.
Yes, so thank you so much, Mariah, for having me. Our story was slightly different. Like Bolatito said, the challenge is that sometimes we delay in taking the right decision because we don't want to look like, we're not spiritual. You want to show that God is powerful and all of that. So even though family members are telling you, please take this option, look at this option, there's nothing wrong with it, you still want to try. I did like 10 cycles of IVF before I finally took the step to say, you know what, I'm done. Wow. I'm done. And for me, this thing is just like a crusade. And that's what we do in Equivocal. I have a foundation for waiting mothers. There's really no reason why any woman should wait. There are several options you can actually explore. There is surrogacy, Even if you don't have the womb, there are options. It's not a big deal anymore. And the challenge that women have is most times men are not supportive. And in most cases it might not even be the woman that is at fault. For many women men don't want to go testing and all of that, So it's important that, at that early stage, you take the decision. I took the decision and I've never regretted it. I really wish I'd done it earlier on. Honestly, there is no difference. The number of my friends who adopted told me that do this thing. There is no difference. Honestly, even if I have 10 children now after my son, none can take the place of my husband. Nobody. I love him that much. And there is no difference. No difference. Honestly, I feel so fulfilled. I'm helping other women to actually come to the realization that, look, there is more to your life than just making babies. Don't put your life on hold. You need to live your life, do other things, take a course. Many women are in depression. This is what I'm actually here to talk about today. This program is not about me, but about a woman out there who is in depression. A lot of women are in abusive relationships. A lot of women have been relegated to the background just because they're not able to bear kids. I want to tell you that, look, your life is much more than having babies. Don't live your life like Methuselah. Bible recorded that, he had children and he died. There was nothing, to talk about, that was, recorded about Methuselah.
Let me get a few questions
you need to go out there and, do what is right. Adopt. And please go through the proper channel. Don't go through the back door. Okay? Go through proper channel, do the right thing. Don't steal babies. Because in the end, in the long run, whether you like it or not, someday you will have to tell this baby the true story.
Right.
What are you going to tell the child?
Right.
If the story is,
Catherine, let me pause for a second.
So it's important you do the right thing.
Let me go ahead.
Please, I want to ask you a question, and this is specifically towards, and this is for Catherine, getting support from your spouse.
Yes.
Because it is, I've spoken to people who've done all the medical procedure. They don't even have any confirmed medical challenge, but they've been unable to get their spouse to go to the hospital for medical procedure to just even confirm if all is well. That's even like the first thing before even thinking of IVF or adoption. How can women get their spouse into the place where they are willing to seek medical help?
I think both of you can answer that question.
So for us, like I said, I run a ministry for women waiting on God for the fruit of the womb, Liverpool ministry. Usually what we do is to invite them, because most of these men also need encouragement. Most times the focus is on the woman. The man is also dealing with his own issues, emotional issues. It's not easy for a man not to have kids, you know, although the attention is the focus is more on the woman. So usually what I advise is that if your husband has like a father figure or an authority figure that he listens to, talk to them, take them to places where they can be enlightened. This thing is all about enlightenment. If the man is enlightened, he will support you. And this thing is not a one-sided battle. You both are in it, and you have to look for all the options that are available to make sure that you have your own child. So really, the onus is not just on the woman. And, you know, I always tell single women as well, you know, be careful who you marry. You know, you need to be sure of the kind of relationship that you're going into. If you don't share the same values, chances are when 1 year or 2 years down the line, it's going to be a different story. Right. I've been married for 21 years by 29th of this month. My husband is very supportive. We knew that this was a battle. When we pray together. When you call for fruit of the womb, we come out and all of that. So it is important that, you know, you have
okay, let me go to a break. I'll come back and I'll take Bolatito's response to that. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So we're still on the issue of infertility, and it's important for us to hear Bolatito's version of how she was able to get her husband to agree for an IVF. Bolatito, you want to share that with us? Bolatito, are you still there? Can she hear me? Bolatito, are you there? Okay, we're having issues getting her back. All right, Catherine, can you hear us? Catherine? Okay, so, I mean, while with connection, that's technology for you. I mean, there was somebody that had issues, that had, and she came to me, she was telling me in confidence that she and her spouse are having trouble, and they're perfectly okay. Man is fine, woman is fine. But age was not on their side. So I offered to be her surrogate. I said, you know, I'll carry the baby.
This Mariah.
I can feel me. During pregnancy, I look very fine.
Pregnancy, you're not sick.
I can be pregnant every year. I'm all right. But I actually offered, you know, but was not, the conversation was that it was difficult for her to help her husband understand that somebody else wants to carry the baby. That was where the break, my own husband was like, are you okay? So I had to do some counseling with my own husband, but even her own husband didn't understand. Because it took a long time to make her husband understand that Mariah is not going to be Mariah's baby. It's going to be her egg and his sperm coming to, I'm just carrying it for you.
And I think that's why this show is very important, because we need to create more awareness that it is okay. Even siblings, I've told someone whose sibling is willing to help her carry the baby, and she's like, we're going to wait on God, you know. So and it is we must discuss things like this. If someone helps you carry a baby, doesn't make you less a mother.
You know, it doesn't make you less a parent. Of that woman that had a white woman carry the baby, and the baby came out black. Because it's her own egg and her husband's sperm. So it doesn't really matter. You're not going to get any genes from the carrier.
At all.
It's purely, completely your own genes. So I think
education is important. And a lot of people who say they believe in God and have faith have put their God in a bottle. They do not understand. It's like they do not understand how limitless God can be. He can use anyone. He will raise up bones to praise him if there's no human being alive. So science is also part of your faith. Science is God's blessing. And so I think when people begin to see that, then they will understand, because a lot of people have sold science to be an instrument of the devil. Every time new technology comes up, there was a time a sect of people did not watch TV, but now they air their whatever on TV. Do you understand? So, and it's education. So, Topo, you're right. We need to speak more about these things, and then people who have done it will need to come, when you come to church to give a testimony, don't give an edited testimony. Give the true story of what happened, who carried my baby, and how God used that person to bless us.
I think Bolatito is back with us. Bolatito, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Right, so we wanted to know how you're able to get your husband to agree to IVF.
Can you come again, please?
We wanted to know how you're able to get your spouse to agree for IVF.
Okay. I have a very supportive husband. In fact, he's a very rare kind of man. And I didn't really have to work hard on him to do that. The gynecologist spoke to us and we both agreed. What I would like to say is that, generally speaking, in Nigeria, it is believed that a Nigerian man can never be sterile. And that is wrong. We should start correcting that notion. Men are responsible for 30% of infertility. Men should get tested. And mother-in-laws should stop pressurizing the wives. Their son also might be responsible for that infertility. For instance, in my book, there is a character in the waiting room that was infertile. So it's just to portray to the public, for them to know that men can also be infertile. Nigerian men, 30% of men are responsible for infertility. We have low sperm count. We even have 0 sperm count. That is oligospermia or something. So you cannot just say because of you are a man, you can impregnate any woman.
Right.
You might also have
my cameraman doesn't agree with you. He's shaking his head like that.
I have a question for Katherine. So
Katherine,
I wanted to ask how accessible and how easy is it for people to get into adoption? How easy is it for them to adopt? Because we have a problem of a lot of people trying to cut corners and patronizing all these houses where they sell babies. Yes, and some of them complain that for you to go through the straight and narrow way, it's very tedious. You have to fill this form, you have to do this, you have to do that. So how easy do you think you can get adoption?
Well, I must, thank you for that question. I must admit that it's really not easy in this part of the world. It's very tough. It's a long process. You have to be patient. You know, but the challenge that we have as humans is like, when we want something, we want it now. We want it right now. And that even applies to every other part of our lives. When people are not ready to wait in line for their turn, they do things that, you know, they are probably will not be proud of. So when you wait in line, we waited for like 3 years while we were still also trying IVF as well. You know, the way it happened, it was just the sheer mercy of God. We didn't have to. It didn't cost us a dime. You know, it did not cost, well, maybe it cost us like 20K, you know, out of excitement when we got the documents approved by the director. You know, then you know, there were secretaries and, you know, they didn't even want to take it. We said, no, just for lunch, thank you for your time and all of that. So these things are not as easy as it is. Many people are like, you know, I don't know, women and issues. The problem with most of our government is that some people are, you know, have turned it to business, you know. And you have to make up your mind that, you know what, I want to go through the proper channel.
Right.
I want to be able to tell my child tomorrow, because somebody is going to tell him or her. If you don't, they will tell. So when they are 18 or maybe 20, when you feel that they are like emotionally stable and ready to take it, you have to tell them. If you don't, somebody will do. But what story are you going to tell that child?
Right.
How will you tell them that you are able, this is how it came through? You know, I've always told people, my son tomorrow wakes up and says he wants to know how and he wants to trace his biological mother.
I can't do that.
I would assist him. It does not change the fact that I'm his mother.
Right.
Okay? And this is my crusade in Quiver Full. And, you know, for this reason, on Saturday, 30th of January, we have invited the veteran actor, Dr. Silva, who's going to be talking on adoption, being an adoptee himself. She's going to tell us, you know, what it felt like when she got to know, how is she able to cope. Did she feel led of part of the family and all of that? And then we're going to have like a Pastor Itua Igodalo of Trinity House, who's also going to look at the spiritual perspective to these things.
Right. Okay, let me let Mariam come in for a moment.
Okay, so I have a question. I think both of you can answer it. And there's something that both of you have said, and it's spousal support. And it seems that once there's spousal support, there's no problem that's insurmountable. And I wonder, when you have your gatherings for women with infertility, what sort of environment do you provide for spouses of those who are going through this? And how willing are men especially, you know, how ready are they and willing to be part of this conversation as you take someone, I guess, from their mindset first until they're able to physically either adopt, have surrogacy or IVF?
Yes, so for Quiverful, yeah, we noticed that some men are not that open. You know, of course, it's a ministry for women, so usually it's women that attend. But when we get to that level of helping, because we also sponsor IVF for women who can afford it. Last year, we sponsored 5 women, and to the glory of God, 3 of them were successful, and we had 4 babies. One was a multiple birth, all expense paid. So what we do is when we get to that level, we call the spouse, look, we can't do anything without your husband's consent. In fact, there was a particular session, my husband was the one who took that session, encouraging and, you know, trying to talk to them to have a change of mind, to be able to embrace this. You know, so this thing is just about education. So I would say it's easy, but one of the things we're also trying to do this year, beyond helping people to pay for their sponsor IVF treatment, is also to see how we can actually register or, you know, work with some of these government establishments to see how we can make, because a lot of our women actually in my ministry want to adopt, but it's tough. So we're trying to see how we can make it easier. That easy by going through the proper channel and helping them to embrace it.
We have to run off.
It's a tough one. Honestly,
we have to run off, Katherine. Let me let Bolatito have let me hear from Bolatito. So I know you have the book, The Waiting Room. Okay. So tell us about that, because lots of women obviously will be inspired by your story and be able to go to the option of IVF. But they say it's still expensive. How expensive was it for you, Bolatito?
Yeah, let me start with my book, The Waiting Room, was inspired by my own personal experience. So it's actually a book written from somebody who has walked the mile. I think that the experience, women generally in Nigeria should be open to IVF. IVF is quite expensive. I think it costs about 1.5 million or thereabouts. I can't know now. I can't know how much it costs now with the dollar rate. But there are some. For instance, Lagos State. I am aware that Lagos State, in conjunction with an IVF clinic, subsidizes IVF payments. So if any woman is interested, they should go to Lawsuits and find out about that. Also, the same thing in Ife Teaching Hospital. I think there's something similar. I think there's a payment plan for women who are interested in IVF. The government, in partnership with the hospital, there's a payment plan for them so they can pay in bits.
Wow.
So IVF is, I keep telling people, IVF is not demonic. It is a miracle, it's a gift. Children are wonderful. Look at my child, is very intelligent, very fun to be with, loving. So very respectful. So they are not different. He spoke when he was supposed to speak. He walked when he was supposed to walk. And concerning my book is also to enlighten people. The waiting room is to enlighten people more about IVF and to also tell every woman looking for a child that there is a way out. You don't have to be desperate. You know, there are actually 3 characters in the book. And the last one was desperate.
We have to run, unfortunately, Bolatito. I'm running out of time. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with us today, Bolatito Adebayo, and also Katherine Abago. We appreciate the both of you. We wish you the best. I'm hoping that Katherine adopts more.
Yeah.
How many more are you adopting?
I'm like 3.
We would like to see maybe a girl, you know?
No problem.
Okay. Have a fabulous day. We'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. Bye for now.
Bye.
To them.